you know that to reasonably affect something, you're going to have to do it by 500 or 600. So you've got to come up with 500 or 600 times of doing this, okay? Come on, man. What are we doing here? We know the only reason that shit's in place is to keep people from voting.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way. It's the only reason it's there.
Yeah, and by Wes Allen's own account, is last time I checked, the valid, bona fide, verified instances of voting fraud was so minuscule. I mean, it was like maybe 1/10 of 1% or 1/100th of 1% or something crazy like that. I mean, it just was so microscopic.
Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Our thanks to Neil Rafferty and Ashley Dunham for coming on, spending some time. Really appreciate them. Also, the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment, really thank them for what they do, and the folks at SPLC as well for sponsoring and continuing to come along with us on this nice little ride that we've been on with this podcast. It continues to grow, continues to build. The little shorts, the reels that Chip puts out now from the video that we record, they do an exceptional numbers on social media. See those all over the place, and heard from a lot of people. Those are really, I think, help boost things up a lot. And it's we go. It's just a clip of our various rants. I mean, I don't know that so mine are rants because I get all wound up and worked up. Yours are more like very serious conversations. It's almost like you're the dad talking to everybody. It's going.
It's the gray hair, man. It's the gray hair. That's what.
Well, you're calm too. You're calm. You're you know what I mean. You're very calm, and it's very it's measured. Where I'm just screaming like a madman half the time on these things, but. That gets attention.
We call it exuberance. That's what we call it, exuberance.
Okay. All right. I'll go with exuberance. Hey, before we get to our right-wing bonehead, I did want to bring up the John Wall situation, because we talked about Tuberville, the entire open, and I said I would bring up Wall. And I got to say, I'm going to probably disappoint some people with this, but I honestly thought that the residency challenge for John Wall should have been voted down. I get what happened. I get the circumstances. But if you're going to make the case for one, I don't think you can make the case for the other. And it's for the same exact reasons. We've argued all along in this. And let me just set the thing here. The residency challenge on John Wall is based primarily on the fact that for a period of time around 2020, we know that he had a Tennessee driver's license. And to get that, you had to go up and claim that you're a resident of the state of Tennessee. But we also know that resident doesn't necessarily mean resident citizen. And it does not necessarily mean that you are domiciled in the state of Tennessee. But he went up, was by his own admission, it said, he was planning to move to the state of Tennessee. He had some business opportunities that he was exploring, was going to go up and do that. Whatever happened. He never actually moved himself completely up to Tennessee and lived there. And so if we're going to argue that Tommy Tuberville can't meet the residency requirements in Alabama because simply having a driver's license here and registering to vote in this state does not constitute residency, then you've also got to apply that to John Wall in Tennessee. Okay. And past the driver's license and past registering to vote in Tennessee, you don't have anything necessarily tying John Wall to that state. I mean, he was leasing some property there. He maintained his home in the state of Alabama. The only elections that he's voted in were the ones in Alabama. He never moved. There's no evidence that I can find that he ever physically moved his possessions, his primary possessions, to the state of Tennessee, to that other property. And so with that being the case, I don't know where you have. Now, there are other problems with John Wall. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. There are other issues out there. Okay. Although I will say that the gentleman who's going to be our right-wing bonehead should have handled some of those things a little bit better and more forcefully, and he should have handled the voter ID issues back when they occurred and landed on his desk, the same way he's handling them now that John Wall is running for the office that he wants. With this sort of anger and vitriol and indignation about how he's like, voter fraud. Did you hear any of that from Wes Allen when he was the Secretary of State before he was running for Lieutenant Governor, and this case landed on his desk? No, you didn't hear any of that. He forwarded it on and then never said anything publicly, never raised the stink, never raised the fuss, never said anything about it publicly about any of this. That's all he did, was forward it on to the AG's office. That's it. So I just think that Wall's case is quite a bit different from Tuberville's. You just don't have the same sort of evidence there Tuberville lives in Florida. That's just it.
Yeah. And after you broke it down, I came around to your way of thinking. My initial thought was that they were basically two peas in a pod, but the way you broke it down, I agree with you. It does not appear as though there's any real resemblance to, in Wall's situation, the Tuberville situation. It seems to be different now. If some other evidence emerges that's not already out there, then it's a different story. But right now, based upon the reporting, and I know you've done extensive reporting on both of these issues, I think you're right. It just sounds like they're not the same.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to make a case against John Wall for some level of, and I don't know what that case would be necessarily, malfeasance of some sorts in relation to voter fraud, or ID fraud or whatever, or I mean, I think there are many issues to raise with him over the use of the name John when his legal name is Nehemiah Ezekiel, and I think that because now we've noticed on his campaign accounts now it's Nehemiah Wall, and that's fine. That's his name, obviously. And I mean, I've had a conversation with John Wall about this, and I said to him, I don't understand the running from the name Nehemiah personally. I mean, that's just me. I mean, and it's the same with the religion or whatever it was. I'm like, dude, I don't care. There is nothing crazy about one person's religion that I can't find something equally crazy with another person's religion. Okay, and that's just. From me and my,
I understand what you mean.
Standing back and looking at it from afar, but it's just, so now he's done this, but on all of those forms that he filled out for the state that he was required to fill out, he's used John, and to me, that's a problem. But he's got to solve that on its own. Somebody's got to bring it up, and that's got to be. We've reported it. We put it out there for everybody. So I don't know what else can be done at this point.
I wonder why he didn't do what some people do. Like we got. Chad Martin running for governor, and he puts in quotations Chig, and that's what I think people that know him and even people that don't know him call him Chig. They don't call him Chad, they call him Chig. So I wonder why he didn't just approach it like that.
I don't know, man. I think that there was some inclination on his part initially to try to hide his past a little bit, and I don't think it was for necessarily like a nefarious sort of situation. I think it was possibly some shame involved in that or some concern that maybe shame is not the right word, but some concern that people wouldn't fully understand what his family was like, how he was raised, and they would judge him for some decisions maybe that his parents made, which obviously people are sure as hell judging him. So he was pretty dead on about some of that, but I do think there are some serious questions he's got to answer, and I think he's got to tell a story at some point. If he wants to be elected lieutenant governor, he's got to tell a story at some point that kind of puts some of what his life is in perspective that people can wrap their hands around. Because I don't think that's there now.
And I'll just quickly say, I think on that note, and this is setting aside the politics. On that note, I think he'd get a lot of sympathy. I know people who were raised in very under very strict, strange religious rules and
Yeah.
in a very strange religious culture, very isolationist and this kind of weird practices and beliefs.
Hmm.
And yet they're good people. They're good
Yes.
people. And, they've had to grow out of that and live beyond it, and they're okay, and
Yeah.
so I think people would sympathize with him because they're probably more people that either have been affected directly by that or who know people who have been
Hmm.
affected by that than he probably realizes.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it at all. And I'll tell you, there's a very good book called Educated. And I can the author's name slips my mind, but it's basically a memoir of her life of growing up in in this kind of ultra religious family. I don't want to say it was in Idaho. They knew the Ruby Ridge folks. I know that, and were
Okay.
friends, and so that's kind of the thing that they were dealing with. And I mean, her father was insane. Some of the things that went on in their life and on the compound in which she lived, and it just talks about her escape from there and how education kind of saved her.
Yeah.
And it just was, if you haven't read it, it is a fantastic book. And so I kind of approached John Wall from that perspective of things of, look, man, you don't get to choose your parents
That's
on
right.
stuff,
And your family, yeah.
and what they do and how they raise you and what you're led to believe and stuff is really not your choice for the majority of your adolescence. And so
Hmm.
and so I just try to pull back from judging people on that sort of thing, and how they're raised and what they believe and stuff, because um you know they call it faith for a reason, and it's you're blindly, believing in some things that don't necessarily make sense, and sure don't make sense to people on the outside looking in at what you're doing.
Hmm.
And that's present in every religion out there. All right, and so that's why I try to separate the religion portion in the early life of Wall from what's taking place now. And if you just focus on what's taking place now, I think there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered about some decisions he's made and some things he's done that
Hmm.
need to be, and he needs to kind of explain who he is to people outside of that. But I didn't think residency was the issue that they made it to be simply because of that driver's
Right.
license. So,
I want
um,
to I want to commend a book to people also that tells a similar story to the one you were describing. And this person is someone I know personally, Dr. Rachel Williams Smith. She's the dean of the School of Journalism and Communication at Southern Adventist University. She has a very well-written, eye-opening memoir that she wrote some years ago called Born Yesterday. Born Yesterday. And what she describes in her memoir is, in some cases, really chilling. It's really chilling,
right.
some of it. And so, again, I think, going back to Wall, he's, despite what we may think about his politics and whatever else in terms of his
Yeah.
upbringing, he's not alone. If that's what
No,
he
no, no.
experienced,
Yeah.
and I don't know the details other than just what little bit of reporting I've read. I
Yeah.
think that you've done, but he's not alone in terms of growing up in under some unusual or even strange or
Sure.
maybe even challenging religious environment.
Right, right. And listen, I don't want people to get confused here
Hmm.
or have the wrong idea. I am in no way excusing if he has done something illegal or unethical
Right, right.
in terms of his office and what he's done. And there have been some ethics questions raised about the way he's handled some stuff,
Hmm.
and particularly with a consulting company that he and his brothers operate. And I honestly, I don't know much about his religious background either, because I just don't care. I don't care. If he wants to have a conversation with me or with anybody and talk about it, well, certainly I'll listen and I'll tell that story to somebody. But I don't know why he would choose me, but whatever.
Mm,
But
hmm.
at the same time, that to me. I care about what you're doing now, what you're doing in office, what you're doing in public, what you're doing with public dollars, how you're controlling things. Are you doing the right things? I have some real, I don't have beef with his parents and whatever they did. I have beef with John Wall doing stuff with the Fairhope Library. Okay. On the library board. That's where my complaints are. And my complaints are with that and with some of the other stuff that he's done in terms of filling out documents and complying with laws and whatnot. And so, those are the things to me that the Republican Party should ask him to answer for. And I just don't think the residency thing is something that's going to be an issue for him. And I don't really know how in the world it got to be such a close vote. Although I will say this one other thing. I meant to bring this up. All reports are that was a 9-9 tie, and then it was broken by the chairwoman of the party.
Oh, wow.
That also a couple of people took part of that who should have recused. One of them being Ben Harrison, who I believe on his statement of economic interest has interest with the Wall family. And so there's some real questions. I think the Republican Party, and not John Wall, but the Republican Party should answer on how they handled that. But that's, neither here and there, I guess. But all right, our bonehead is Wes Allen, and it's now not just Wes Allen. Wes Allen and the Republicans in our legislature who have passed these laws that make it harder for certain people to vote. Okay, and I bring this up because this week there was a press release in which Wes Allen touted his tough stance on voter fraud and this 33 count indictment against two ladies over in Phenix City. I don't know the particulars of this case. I don't know all of the things that have been talked about and have gone on, but I did read the legal documents that have been filed. I read through the warrants, I read through the indictments, and I know what they've been indicted with and what they've been charged with. Okay. And here's what they've been indicted with and charged with. These are the only two things repeated. They were indicted for encouraging certain people to vote absentee who were otherwise going to go to the polls and vote. And 2, mailing an absentee ballot for somebody. Those are the felony convictions. Or no, I'm sorry, not convictions. Felony charges. Facing these two women over there that we've got a whole press release put out for and talking about the great job that he's doing and stamping out fraud. That ain't fraud. Let me tell you what, according to the warrant that was issued to the court to get a judge to sign off so they could search these ladies' phones. Okay. Here's what the investigation found that they had done. They had gone over, and I'm assuming this was in some sort of an old folks home, or an apartment complex where there were some old folks living, and they had gone over to these people and informed them that they did not have to go to the polls to vote, that they could apply for an absentee ballot, and that they would help them, if they wanted to, they would help them fill out the absentee ballot. Then, when the ballots came in, they went and collected them and put them in the mailbox for them.
Yeah. So you think about, the fact that there are people who are infirmed who need that kind of support, and they should be able to access it. But between, the gross level of partisanship that we have developed, as well as just the laws that have really, been implemented to suppress voting rights, this is what we have. And people who think it's going to stop here are naive because, if they can back the voting rights train all the way back up to the beginning of the track, I get the feeling that's what they're going to try to do. So this is just one more example of, an instance where, between a very partisan Secretary of State and partisan legislation that has been passed by our legislature that is overtly partisan, this is where we are. This is what we have.
Yeah. We have these laws that they make no sense. Okay, they make no sense at all, because unlike so many other states, and I want to say 47 other states. Okay, 47 other states allow multiple day voting. Okay, they allow early voting, whatever. And so there are multiple opportunities for people who are working, people who are infirmed, people who have some trouble getting to poll in places. They can go on multiple days and cast a ballot. They can apply for an absentee ballot very easily at their home and do this. There's no fraud involved in these things. It's been studied. It's been studied until it can't be studied anymore. I mean, at this point, we're basically studying the studies of whether or not this creates more fraud, and it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And this is what I tell people all the time, and it comes in terms of like the voter ID laws and not having a picture ID to do this. Do you know how frivolous it would be to try to steal votes in person voting somewhere? I mean, do you know what sort of a grand scheme that you would have to put together that you utilized literally dozens, if not hundreds of people to affect the outcome of an election by going in and stealing the votes of somebody because you were able to obtain their ID, even if you could somehow ascertain the identities of, let's say, 1,000 people that you knew were not going to vote. They were registered, but they were not going to vote. All right. So now you've got to go to the polling place, right? You've got to present something, because you've got to present something, or a credit card, a bill, something. You've got to present something for this person to prove you're that person. You've got to rely on the fact that nobody there knows you. Okay? Nobody knows you. And you've got to present this document that allows you to get in there and cast that ballot. So that's one. That's one damn vote. All right. And now you've got to figure out a way to replicate this enough times to affect the outcome of any sort of an election. And we know that, it's always a surprise when an election is within 1,000 votes most of the time, even a county commission or something. It's a surprise, when it gets down there. So, that to reasonably affect something, you're going to have to do it by 500 or 600. So you've got to come up with 500 or 600 times of doing this. Okay. Come on, man. What are we doing here? We know the only reason that shit's in place is to keep people from voting. That's the only way. It's the only reason it's there.
Yeah, and by Wes Allen's own account, is last time I checked, the valid, bona fide, verified instances of voting fraud was so minuscule. I mean, it was like maybe 1/10 of 1% or 100, 1/100th of 1% or something crazy like that. I mean, it just was so microscopic, it didn't even matter, No. So, like you're saying, come on, man, what are we doing?
Yeah, and did you see the one foreign national that they arrested for casting the fraudulent ballot?
No, one foreign national.
The white guy from Canada.
One foreign national, and a white guy on top of that from Canada.
Yeah, a white guy from Canada. Wow. I mean, really, honestly, did not see that coming. But it's just, and really the reason nobody's heard about that is the fact that he was a white guy from Canada, and so everybody was waiting to pounce on a bunch of Hispanic people casting fraudulent votes because they're stealing our elections. And it turns out, no, they're not. They're not at all. Actually, we got one of the highest populations of Hispanic people in the country, and they're not doing anything like that. So it just, man, there's no reason why we shouldn't have early voting. There's no reason why we shouldn't make it easier for people to obtain an absentee ballot. There's no reason why we shouldn't allow people to assist folks with their absentee ballots. It's suppressing a vote because the people in power want to remain in power, and this is the way that they do it. All right, that's all there is to it. And that's why Wes Allen's a bonehead, because he's just furthered that in the interest of promoting himself and pandering to people, and it's atrocious. It really is atrocious that we continue to do this to people. So,
yep.
All righty. That's a nice long episode for you. Hope you enjoyed that one. So I tell you, till next week, y'all be safe out there.